Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is April 3rd, and right now we're taking a look at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see this upper level low across the Pacific Northwest. A lot of cumuliform clouds, a spin in the atmosphere. We're going to remain chilly on in through today and tomorrow. Thunderstorm threat, can't rule out a couple lightning strikes over the next couple days as well. Eventually this low will start to kick off as we go through tomorrow and on in through Wednesday, but we've got more systems out here that are going to be knocking on the door as we go through this week before we potentially start to build a ridge here on the west coast of North America. And we'll look at those details. We've got some model disagreement coming up here, so we'll compare some model runs here and check out and see what they're saying towards the end of the video. Looking at Seattle yesterday, 46 degrees, very chilly high temperature there, whopping 11 degrees below average, quarter of an inch of rainfall there. It was actually snowing in some of the Seattle metro yesterday, some wet snowflakes mixing in there, no significant accumulations. And we can't see snow in the first half of April here across some of the lower elevations. It's not that unusual when you get a cold upper level low around. Here we go with current hazards. We got winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings for Oregon as this activity starts to pivot south and east over the next couple of days. There could be some snowfall still going on through this evening across some of the Cascades, even though there are no winter weather advisories currently. We'll look at that here in a moment. This is day one thunderstorm outlook here. It does include the Willamette Valley just up towards the Seattle metro, and day two starting to push off to the east. This is looking at the HER3KM, a high-resolution rapid refresh. As we put this into motion, you can see some of this destabilization across western Washington, Oregon, all the way up towards Vancouver Island. Can't rule out a lightning strike or two, really anywhere across Pacific Northwest coming up through this evening. This is looking at the NAM3KM, and I wanted to show you this really quick here because you can see the westerly surge start to come down the Strait of Juan de Fuca as we go through this afternoon and evening here through the Chehalis Gap. And of course, they meet on the other side across the Puget Sound here. And you can kind of see this little curly-Q feature there in the form of a convergent zone. The NAM's kind of painting a little bit of a strong cell coming across the region today and tonight. But the European's not really showing it too much. Keeps the southerlies through the Puget Sound a little bit more. The convergent zone would stay a little bit farther north here. And this could actually, as it moves east, increase some of that snowfall overnight tonight across some areas of the Cascades locally there. So just have a heads up across Snoqualmie or Stevens Pass through tonight for some winter driving conditions. This is looking at what the Doppler radar may look like. Again, this is the NAM3KM, hot off the presses. Put it into motion. You kind of see that feature in the convergence zone moving across the Seattle metro here through this evening and tonight, and potentially off into the Cascades here. So as we scroll forward into Tuesday, we could do thunderstorms again, but they're calling mainly east of the Cascades. It's still not a strong signal here, according to the NAM anyway. But as you go through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, the next system already starting to knock on our door here. By the time you get to Wednesday afternoon, potentially some precipitation starting from the next storm there as well. Now we'll take a look at the extended forecast here in a minute. Some interesting stuff to show. This is looking at the NAM3KM. This is just a total snow. You can see a little bit of accumulation across some of the central Cascades, and a few inches can't be ruled out. Again, that's why I mentioned the winter driving conditions as we go on into tomorrow morning here. Now, taking a look at this is the European on the left versus the GFS on the right. This is up towards 18,000 feet, 500 millibars. You've got Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon. Same thing here with the GFS. Of course, we've got good model agreement in the short term. And you can see kind of a brief amount of ridging there before this next system comes in. GFS is stronger with this system, as you can see, versus the European, but both of them show that system there. Then we've got another weak one brushing by here. And again, the GFS a little bit stronger with those systems there. European digs this trough out over the Gulf of Alaska and allows this ridging to build downstream over the Pacific Northwest. But look at the GFS, a much stronger storm out over the Gulf of Alaska, much closer to the west coast, keeping that ridging much more flat here across the Pacific Northwest. So we've got some interesting details we need to work out here coming up. This is looking at the Canadian. Let me back that up. And you can see short-term trough here, a bit of ridging builds before the next system starts to arrive here as we go on in through Thursday. And then one more system on the day Saturday before we start to build the ridge as we go on in through Sunday. So the Canadian kind of showing a stronger ridge here as we go through the weekend coming up, and some deep troughing here across the Gulf of Alaska. So we've got some model disagreement we got to work out here. The GFS kind of took a turn for the colder, as you saw. Now, looking at the European, this is last night's run. Here we go at the trough, moving out. Next system moves in as we go on in through Thursday. Kind of not a bad low pressure center there. This would bring some windy conditions here, at least blustery across western Washington, Oregon, up through Vancouver Island, southwest BC. So we'll watch that system there. And the next system rolls in here as we go through Saturday before the ridge starts to build as we develop the trough over the Gulf of Alaska. This is looking at Seattle-Tacoma. I'm showing you the max wind gust, and as you can see, there are some 40, 50, 49, 44, 45. There are some blustery conditions showing up here as we go through Thursday night into early Friday morning with one of those low pressure centers there. Nothing too major. Doesn't look like any kind of big windstorm there, but we could get a blustery front Thursday night. We'll see how that trends. This is looking at Portland International Airport. This is last night's European, or yesterday afternoon's European run, I should say. And you can see as we go Saturday, Sunday, Monday, things look like they're still going to warm up here on the European, but let me show you the GFS here in a minute. This is Seattle-Tacoma European. You can see as we go through Saturday, Sunday, Monday, some warm temperatures potentially coming up as we go on in through early next week. This is looking at the GFS, though. You can see how this is run to run. So if you go back towards April 1st, April 2nd, you can kind of see it was pointing at some warmer temperatures, but on the last three runs, the GFS has started to back off and say, hey, wait a minute, hold the phone here for a second. We're not going to warm up that much. So we're looking at a classic GFS versus European battle here coming up for the later weekend and on in through early next week. This is Portland here, same thing, GFS. You can see it's backed off on these temperatures here, only up towards 60 versus up towards 70 as of a couple days ago. And now here we're looking at the European. It backed off on the temperatures a little bit for Portland, for example, but not too bad. It's still showing pretty warm temperatures coming up here. This would be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday here. Now we're looking at Seattle-Tacoma. So the Europeans still saying we're going to warm up here as we go through the weekend on in through early next week, but the GFS disagrees. If you look at what the National Weather Service is saying, you can see the West Coast. This was issued yesterday. High chances of above average temperature here coming up. We'll see if this changes a bit today, and we'll see how much stock they put into what the GFS is saying. This is 8 to 14 day. You can clearly see the above average signal across much of the West coming up here as well. Now, this is looking February 1st through April 1st, percent of average precipitation. Look at Washington. Much of the state has been quite a bit below average here, including places like Seattle, down towards Tacoma, Olympia, off into the Cascades here. Look at some of the Cascades, between 25 and 50% of the normal precipitation across Washington, some of the northern Oregon Cascades as well. And when you get east of the mountains here, it's easier to skew these numbers because they don't get much precipitation there in eastern Oregon for the most part. So when you drop a little bit of precipitation over there, it can skew the numbers and make the percentages look higher than they actually are. But a pretty stark signal here across some of Washington, the Idaho Panhandle, and through portions of western Montana here for below average precipitation. And that's why we're looking at the potential for some drought development across some of the Washington Cascades. Hopefully we can mitigate that some with some systems as we go through the next few weeks. And again, I'll mention this, the Tempest weather system here. This station is doing very well. I'm comparing it daily to my Davis professional instrument setup. And for example, the Davis had 48.6 yesterday, and this had 48.5. And it picked up the lightning that happened off to the east of SeaTac there. The ultrasonic anemometer is a 3-second reading, and it's virtually step-by-step accurate with the Davis. It's all solar powered. You don't have to add batteries. The app is very good. It stores all the data for you. The UV and the solar index is just perfectly in tune with what the Davis shows as well. The pressure, the barometric pressure, is extremely extremely accurate as well. So I'm kind of jealous that I didn't test the station out a little bit earlier here. I know that it's been out for a year or two now, and it's doing very well. So I'm very impressed, and I'm a admitted weather station snob here. So if you want to click on that link below, make sure that West Coast weather is in the code for your 10% off, and it throws a couple bucks towards the channel here, helps support the channel. But yeah, anyway, here we go. You might get a couple lightning strikes across the region today. Eyes on the sky. You might see some small hail across the area. And we've got more systems to go than the potential warm-up coming this weekend. But as you saw, we got some model disagreement coming up here. So we'll see how that trends tomorrow. We have a few days to look at it, so it's not worth getting into the argument of the European versus the GFS just yet. It'll be very telling to see what the most recent European as of 12Z will show coming up here, and see if it kind of backs off on that ridging and the temperatures a little bit, or if it kind of doubles down on the ridge developing. If the European doubles down on the ridge developing here, then I kind of put lower confidence into the GFS, for example. The European tends to do a little bit better. But anyway, yeah. So remember to click like and subscribe if you like what's going on here with these weather videos daily, and we'll do this again tomorrow, and I'll talk to you guys then.